The design you see here, all of these entities, the spiral and the arrow and so on, have been placed in what's called model space. This is where you build your design, and it's a reflection of the real world, the size of the entities. If this rectangle here represented an area of paving, its width is 2.29 meters by nearly 2 meters in height, and that's the actual size of the object. In this case, let's assume it was landscape design. That's the actual size of a paved area. In fact, we could take the distance tool and measure from the bottom of this design all the way to the top, and you can see it's 20,409 units, or in my world that would translate to 20,409 millimeters, or 20 meters from top to bottom. And clearly a design like that needs to be presented correctly on a layout space, and you form a layout space under Format and go to Layouts, and that creates a new layout on a piece of paper. So if we switch to one that I've called A4 Sheet Landscape, I've been able to create a layout. I'll go Format and Layouts, and you can see I've clicked this new switch and made a new layout. It happens to be on an A4 sheet, and it's in portrait view, so I can click here and change from book or portrait to album, and I'll OK it, and you can see that the piece of paper changes shape. But this zone that you see here is called a floating viewport, and it's quite flexible. We can use it in this way to size it, and I'll unselect by right clicking and picking unselect all. This now represents an A4 sheet, and I can put a logo on the bottom right hand corner. This floating viewport, if we select it and click inside it, we get back to the design. So I can change the size of the space. Let's zoom in a little and position this magenta box, and then we'll right click and display on the layout. And you see we've changed. It's like I guess like a viewfinder looking at the design. And so you could print this out on the A4 sheet, and what you see in the floating viewport will appear on the printed sheet. It's very handy because in the field that I work in landscape, we might go to our layouts, pick a new one, and almost all of our designs are presented on an A1 sheet in album format, and I'll leave it at layout, and we should now be able to see that new sheet. What I neglected to do is to make it current, so we'll go back to layout, click here and tick it and make it current. Now the word layout appears there. I'll right click and zoom extends. There's the A1 sheet. Let's measure it. It should be around 840 in width, so across to here 840. So we're looking at an A1 sheet of paper. I can then insert into this space a floating viewport, and to do that I go to Graphics and Viewport, and I can make my floating viewport like so. I could probably put another one in, a viewport like so. So we have two floating viewports on an A1 sheet, and each could be looking at a different part of the model. So I can come down here and position that one around and display it. Can you see we're looking at the rectangle? I need to deactivate the viewport. We're looking at the rectangular paving area there, and here we're looking at the full-size model. I'll zoom extends. So understanding the spaces in your LiteCAD.exe environment is really quite important. I'll go back to the model. The majority of your work will be done in this model area. If I wanted to change the background to a dark background, which we recommend you work with, working with a white background like this is quite tricky, I would go to Format, Drawing Options, and go back to Colours, and I would change my background colour from white to black, and I'd change my foreground colour to white and my cursor colour similarly to white. And now we're in an area that's much kinder, a view if you like, that's much kinder on the eyes. So I hope that helps you orient yourself in the LiteCAD.exe drawing environment.